Hi everybody, welcome to Mindful Monday. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to pop in if you're live online right now. If not, you can watch later. It's Catherine here from YogaNaraska. So if you're hanging out live, please say hello in the comments. Let me know that you're here and tell me how your Monday is going. Hello, Mindful Life Practice. How are you guys doing? Welcome to Mindful Monday. So before we start our little mindfulness meditation, I'm just going to wait a couple minutes to see if anybody else is going to join us live. So let me know how your day is going. Hello, Shobit Yoga India as well. Hi. Nice to connect with everybody on here. I'm starting to get used to this whole live thing. It's new for me. So hello, and welcome. I'm glad that we are all sharing the wonderfulness of yoga around the world. I think we could all use a little bit more yoga wisdom in our everyday lives. And the whole point of me doing this Mindful Monday thing is to talk about a bit more about the philosophy of yoga. As you know, in the West here, we're really focused on the more physical fitness style practice of asana. So it's sometimes nice to talk about the more philosophical side. So that's what we're doing here today. And the meditation part, the mindfulness part, coming into the self and really checking on what's going on inside the mind, in the body, emotions, spirit, the whole thing, the works. You guys know. Okay, so we are talking about mindfulness, and mindfulness really just means taking a moment wherever you are to tune into what is happening right now in your life, in your mind, in your body. So for me today, I'm actually feeling quite crappy. It doesn't look like it, but it's true. I'm feeling a little bit heavy, a little bit discouraged, a little bit sad. And what I've known from yoga and from starting this little venture is you just got to show up. You got to show up no matter what. Come to your mat, or you can really be mindful wherever you are, but for me it's easier when I'm on the mat. And really just be present for your emotions and what you're finding in your mind and in your body on that particular day. Sometimes when we turn away from our emotions, they come and haunt us later. The average emotion only really lasts 90 seconds, and if you just lean into it and let yourself feel it, it's probably going to stop bothering you so often. And if you don't really recognize your emotions for what they are, they're just gonna they're gonna start to present themselves in the body, and they're gonna start just coming up more and more often and more what's the word? Just bigger. They're gonna feel bigger if you just keep turning away from them. So sometimes we need to turn in, and it's okay. It's scary at first. It's terrifying. I know. But it's work that's worth doing, and you'll be able to just move beyond it eventually. So let's do that together today. So if you're feeling crappy on your Monday morning, don't worry about it. Me too. Let's be crappy together. We're humans being. All right, so let's close our eyes, finding a tall seat, letting the shoulders drop down and away from the ears. Perhaps noticing the furthest sound away from you that you can hear. So for me, that's the trucks that are going by on the road outside. And we're bringing our attention from the outer boundaries of our perception and bringing them in, all the way in to our inner world. So let's begin with the furthest sound that you can hear. And then let's bring that awareness of sound a little bit closer. What's sort of in your mid-range of hearing? I can hear the clock in this room ticking. And finally, what is in your immediate sphere? What sort of sounds can you hear in your immediate sphere of awareness? So for me, I can hear my nose sort of whistling quietly with the breath. And it feels strained. It feels difficult to regulate my breath. So maybe just take a moment without changing it. Just focus in on what your breath feels like today. If it's easy or strained. And I find when I'm resisting being in my body or getting in touch with my emotions, the quickest way to get there is through the breath. The breath is such a powerful tool, because when we're going throughout our day, we're not really paying attention to our breath, but it's still working in the background. It's sustaining us, but it's one of those sort of automatic functions, sort of like your stomach digestion, right? It just happens all the time without you thinking about it. But the difference with the breath is that you actually can control it. You can bring your awareness to it, and that really gets you into the body, and it uses your mind. It brings your mind into a singular focus on something. So this is the power of the breath. So let's begin to work the breath a little bit, see if we can turn ourselves inward a little bit here. Okay, so let's begin to deepen the breath a little bit, breathing in through the nose. You can either choose to breathe out the mouth if that's more comfortable, or back through the nostrils, up to you. Okay, so let's begin to deepen the breath now. I'll give you a couple moments. Noticing if you feel any calmer or more focused, or perhaps you might find that your mind and body is resisting this inward turning. That's normal. But just know, like I mentioned earlier, if you lean into your emotions, you can often move through them with much more ease. So I'm going to teach you a little breath technique here, and it does involve holding the breath. So if holding the breath makes you feel uncomfortable, or you have a bit of anxiety around that, feel free to just skip over that part. And if you would like to not participate in the holding of the breath, I'm going to ask you to count your breaths in. So let's all do that. Let's just start there. So let's all count how many seconds it takes for us to fill our lungs. So I'll give you a moment. And count how many on the exhale. Okay, so if you'd like to not hold the breath, I'm going to ask you to keep counting the inhales and the exhales, but try to make your exhale a couple of beats or seconds longer than the inhale, and that's going to help you feel calmer. Okay, so longer exhale than inhale. If you would like to work with holding the breath a little bit, we're going to do something called box breathing. So when we do box breathing, we're going to inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4. So we're kind of making a box shape. So we're breathing in, hold, breathing out, hold, breathing in. So we're going around and around. So let's give that a shot. Okay, deep breath in, hold, deep breath out, and hold. Deep breath in, hold, deep breath out, hold, deep breath in. So you can keep doing that if that feels nice for you. This is a breath that I turn to often, especially when I'm feeling anxious or panicked. I've used this before important meetings. I've used this during anxiety attacks. I've used this before interviews or difficult conversations. It's really something that just helps you bring your focus inward, not focus on whatever anxious thoughts are in your mind, and really get into the body. So breathwork is really a magical technique for us to do that. All right, so let's get into the topic of our conversation today. Hello, Brett. Hello, Christina. Hi. Thanks for joining in. Okay, so we finished the little meditation part. Sorry if you missed it, but you can catch the replay. And now we're going to be talking about some yoga wisdom. So we've been talking about mindfulness, and we've been talking about the yamas. So the yamas are basically, we've been talking about them like the yogi code. They're the way that we deal with the world around us. So we've discussed a couple of them so far. We've discussed ahimsa, which is nonviolence. We've discussed asteya, which is non-stealing. And we discussed satya, which means truth and authenticity. So there's two more. There's 5 yamas. There's 2 more. So the 2 we are discussing today is Bramacharya and, what's the last one? Aparigraha. So we're discussing these 2. So Bramacharya, originally in the ancient yogi culture, was more about, so it's talking about the right use of energy. And so back in the day, most of yogis were sort of like monk type people. They lived this monk type existence, and they gave up all their worldly possessions and sort of gave up their whole entire being to serving others and to studying yoga. And we don't quite ask that of ourselves today unless it's something that you want to do. But Bramacharya back in those days was actually meant to be more about using sexual energy. So it was more about like less about like following your desires and, you know, running away with your fantasies and that sort of thing, and, you know, wanting people out of lust rather than like love and that sort of thing. But you can also think of Bramacharya as how you exchange and work with energy in other people. So I find this one's really useful for me in this world of like grind culture and in, you know, like the corporate environment where it's all like work, and your value is based on your productivity, and when you come home you're expected to do all the chores and come to every family obligation and go to all the events with your friends, and there's not really a lot of emphasis on rest, which is to me in yoga is very important, especially I'm someone who struggles with chronic illness, and rest is very much needed very much needed for me. So Bramacharya reminds me that it's okay to balance productivity and rest. It's okay to do that. So it's all about respecting your own energy levels and your own energy needs, and like not feeling guilty for sleeping in on a Saturday. And also the opposite goes, right? Like if you're feeling like you'd rather sit on the couch and eat chips, there's probably a time for that, but maybe your time would be better spent having a quick session on the yoga mat. So it's just considering about where your energy is best spent at any moment in time. So that's Bramacharya. The next one is Aparigraha. And this one's really interesting. So the word means non-gripping or like non-attachment. And at first I really resisted this because it's talking about not putting attachment to possessions or people or things. So I guess we all kind of get this, right? That in this consumeristic society that we live in, this capitalist nightmare, it's all about, you know, like you think that you're going to feel fulfilled when you have the new car and the new house, and you take your vacation and blah, 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 blah. And you're always expecting that the next big thing, the next thing you buy, the next thing you do is going to be the thing that finally makes you happy. we can also talk about that with people, right? We can say, oh, when I find the person that's meant for me, I'll finally be happy, or when I finally have a baby, the baby will make me happy. But we all know, like, on some deep level, that's not true. People, I know you love your family, I know you do, but we can't put our responsibility for happiness on other people. That's not fair to those people. We can't say it's your job to make me happy. That's not cool. Happiness is an inside job, people. It's this whole idea of Aparigraha is not attaching our sense of self and our responsibility for happiness on other people and other things. It's about finding happiness within yourself. So that was a huge thing for me to realize, this whole non-attachment thing. It's okay to love other people. That's what I'm saying. It's okay to be attached in some way to these people, but not in the way that you depend on them for your well-being. Okay, so something else that comes up with this in terms of happiness, and we'll talk about it, I think it's one of the Yamas, yes, so we'll talk about it next week, is the idea of santosha, which is contentment. So sometimes in our society we're really focused on happiness. Like, you have to be happy all the time. But happiness is like any emotion, like we were talking about earlier: sadness, disappointment, jealousy, the emotions that we turn away to. We're so quick to turn away from. We're so quick to turn away from these negative feelings, and we're so quick to turn to happiness and all of these other good feelings. But there are no good and bad feelings, and happiness is just as short and fleeting as sadness. It just depends on how long you decide to stay in that feeling. So happiness can't last forever. Happiness is for a couple moments at a time. But contentment is different. Contentment is more about looking around and saying, it's not so bad right now. Like, my life, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. And that is a much easier feeling to sit with for a long period of time than the idea of happiness. So I could get way into this, but we're going to talk about it next week, so I won't. But yeah, so now we're all done with the yamas, all the ways that we interact with the world around us. And then the niyamas go a little bit deeper, and they're about how we interact with ourselves. So again, that idea of contentment versus happiness. So yes, thank you for joining me. Christina says she's all for devoting energy and intentionality. Things matter less than experiences, and happiness is an inside job. You are so right. I know you totally get it, because you're an awesome boss babe and a totally loving and caring person. So you're right up my alley. Yeah, and these are just some really interesting ideas to work with that maybe if you aren't super schooled in the yogi ways, this might be some new perspective for people to work with on some of these ideas. So thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I will see you next Monday. I'm already feeling less heavy and sad. And it just goes to show, you just sit down on your mat for a couple moments, do some breathing exercises, turn your attention inwards, notice whatever feelings are there, and say, thanks for showing up, and just let them on their way. And that's the beauty of mindfulness. Just feel what you're feeling and then move on. It's not as hard as it seems. It's scary at first, but it's not as hard as it seems. So no problem. I'll see you guys soon. Have a good Monday.